What happens when a mother sits across from Dr. Phil, ready to talk about the daughter she hasn't seen in 10 years, and a production assistant walks on stage mid-recording with an envelope that changes everything? Dr. Phil, we need to stop. Right now! The words cut through the studio like a knife. Dr. Phil turned, saw the envelope, and made a decision that no one, not the producers, not the audience, not even the mother sitting on that couch, could have anticipated. He stopped the cameras. And what happened next would become the most unforgettable moment in the show's history. 48 hours earlier, Linda Martinez had walked into the Dr. Phil studio carrying the weight of a decade. She was 54 years old, a hospital administrator from Phoenix, and she hadn't spoken to her daughter Sarah in exactly 3,847 days. She knew the number because she counted every single one. The show's producers had reached out after Linda wrote a desperate email to the Dr. Phil website at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. "I don't know what else to do," the email began. "My daughter won't answer my calls. She blocked me on everything. I made mistakes, but I need her to know I'm sorry. I need her to know I love her." Dr. Phil had read the email himself. He'd been doing this for 21 years, and something about Linda's words hit differently. There was no anger in that email, no blame, no excuses. Just raw, aching grief. But what Dr. Phil didn't know was that Linda's daughter had been watching every episode, waiting for this exact moment. Linda sat in the green room, hands shaking as the makeup artist tried to apply powder. "Just breathe," the woman said kindly. "Dr. Phil is really good at this." Linda nodded, but breathing felt impossible. In her purse, she carried a photo of Sarah at 17, the last birthday they'd spent together before everything fell apart. Sarah was laughing in the picture, wearing the necklace Linda had given her that morning. The fight that ended everything happened 3 weeks after that photo was taken. It was about money, about choices, about Linda's new husband who Sarah hated. Words were said that could never be unsaid. Sarah packed a bag and left. She was 18. Legally an adult. Legally gone. Linda tried everything. Texts, emails, letters sent to Sarah's friends' addresses. She hired a private investigator who found Sarah living in Portland, working at a bookstore, going to community college. Alive. Safe. But unreachable. 5 minutes, Ms. Martinez, a producer said, knocking gently on the door. Nobody knew that in Portland, Sarah was sitting in her apartment, watching the live stream feed on her laptop, her heart racing so fast she thought she might pass out. The taping began smoothly. Dr. Phil walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. He shook Linda's hand and sat across from her in his signature pose, leaning forward, hands clasped, blue eyes focused with that intensity that made millions of viewers feel like he was talking directly to them. "Linda, tell me why you're here," Dr. Phil said. Linda's voice cracked immediately. "I lost my daughter. And I don't know how to get her back." "How long has it been?" 10 years, 5 months, and 12 days. Dr. Phil paused. The studio went completely silent. He'd expected Linda to round off. "About 10 years. Or a long time." But she knew the exact count. That told him everything. "Tell me what happened," he said softly. Linda began the story. The remarriage too soon after her divorce. The new husband who was controlling. The argument where Linda chose him over Sarah. "I was so afraid of being alone," Linda whispered. "I thought I needed him. I didn't realize I was losing something infinitely more precious." The audience was captivated. Tissues were being passed down rows. Dr. Phil listened without interrupting, nodding at the right moments, his expression showing both understanding and quiet devastation for what Linda had lost. But off camera, something unprecedented was happening in the control room. Sarah had called the show's hotline 40 minutes into the taping. "I'm Linda Martinez's daughter," she told the screener. "I'm watching right now. I need to send my mom something. Please. I know this is crazy, but please." The producer who took the call made a split-second decision that would violate every protocol in television production. "What do you want to send?" "A letter. I already wrote it. I can email it to you right now. Please print it and give it to her. Please. I can't let another day go by. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead." 15 minutes later, a production assistant named Marcus was standing backstage, holding a freshly printed letter in a white envelope. He'd been working on the show for 3 years and had never, ever interrupted a taping. But the senior producer had looked him in the eye and said, "This is bigger than the show. Go." Marcus walked onto the stage during a camera transition. Dr. Phil was mid-sentence, talking to Linda about forgiveness and time. The audience gasped as Marcus approached. Dr. Phil turned, clearly confused and slightly annoyed at the interruption. "Dr. Phil," Marcus said quietly, "we need to stop. Right now." Dr. Phil stood up. He'd been in television for decades and had never had someone interrupt him like this. His first instinct was frustration. Then he saw Marcus's face. The young man was on the verge of tears. "What's going on?" Dr. Phil asked. Marcus handed him the envelope. "It's from her daughter. Sarah called. She's watching. She wanted her mom to have this." Time stopped. Dr. Phil looked at the envelope, then at Linda, who had gone completely pale. The studio audience realized what was happening and began to cry collectively, hundreds of people processing the magnitude of this moment in real time. "Linda," Dr. Phil said, his voice breaking slightly, "your daughter is watching right now. She called the show. She wants you to have this." Linda couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Dr. Phil walked over and placed the envelope in her hands. "Do you want to read it here, or do you want to go somewhere private?" he asked. Linda looked at the envelope like it was made of light. Her hands shook so violently that the paper rattled. "Here," she whispered. "I want to read it here." Dr. Phil sat back down. He nodded to the camera operators. "Keep rolling," he said quietly. What happened next is something no one in the room, or watching at home, saw coming. Linda opened the envelope slowly, carefully, like she was afraid it would disintegrate. Inside was a single handwritten page. Her eyes scanned the first line, and she immediately broke down sobbing, deep, guttural sobs that seemed to come from 10 years of accumulated grief. Dr. Phil waited. The audience waited. Millions watching at home waited. When Linda finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. She says she forgives me." The studio erupted. People were crying, hugging strangers, staff members in the wings were wiping their eyes. Dr. Phil himself had to take a moment, pressing his fingers to the bridge of his nose in that gesture he made when he was deeply moved. "Can you read it?" Dr. Phil asked gently. "Or do you want me to?" Linda shook her head. "I'll read it." She took a shaky breath and began. "Mom, I've been watching every episode, waiting for the courage to do this. I was so angry for so long. I blamed you for everything. But I've been in therapy for 3 years now, and I've learned that holding on to this anger is only hurting me. I see you on that stage, and I see a woman who is broken by her own choices. I see someone who has been punished enough. I don't want you to hurt anymore. I don't want me to hurt anymore. I forgive you. I'm ready to talk. I'm ready to try. Please call me. Please. I miss my mom." Off camera, Dr. Phil made a choice no producer expected. He stood up and motioned for the cameras to stop rolling. "Cut," he said firmly. Then he turned to Linda. "I need you to come with me. Right now." Confused, Linda stood and followed Dr. Phil off the stage. The audience sat in stunned silence as they disappeared through the side door. Producers scrambled, not knowing what was happening. Dr. Phil led Linda into a small office backstage. He pulled out his phone. "Sarah included her number at the bottom of that letter, didn't she?" Linda nodded, unable to speak. "Call her. Right now." I'm not going to let another second pass without you two talking. Linda's hands shook as she dialed. The phone rang once. Twice. Then, Mom? That single word, Mom, broke Linda completely. She collapsed into the chair, phone pressed to her ear, crying so hard she couldn't form sentences. Dr. Phil quietly stepped out and closed the door, giving them privacy. For 20 minutes, mother and daughter talked. They cried. They apologized. They said, "I love you," 17 times. When Linda finally emerged from that office, her face was transformed. The grief that had carved lines into her features for a decade had softened. She looked 10 years younger. Dr. Phil was waiting. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Like I can breathe again," Linda whispered. They returned to the stage to finish the episode, and what Dr. Phil said next would be replayed millions of times. Dr. Phil looked directly into the camera. "Folks, I've been doing this show for over 2 decades. I've seen thousands of families. I've mediated countless conflicts. But what you just witnessed is why I do this job. This is why this show exists." He turned to Linda. "Your daughter loves you. She never stopped loving you. And Sarah, if you're still watching, and I know you are, your mother loves you more than life itself. What happened here today is a reminder that it's never too late. It's never too late to heal. It's never too late to forgive. It's never too late to come home." The audience stood and applauded for 3 full minutes. But the story didn't end there. 2 weeks later, Linda and Sarah met in person at a restaurant in Portland. They sat across from each other, both terrified, both hopeful. The first hug lasted 5 minutes. They talked for 6 hours. Sarah moved back to Phoenix 3 months later. Not to live with Linda, she had her own apartment, but to be close. They started having dinner every Sunday. Slowly, carefully, they rebuilt what had been broken. Dr. Phil followed up with them 6 months after the episode aired. Linda and Sarah appeared together, sitting side by side on the same couch where Linda had sat alone. "How are you two doing?" Dr. Phil asked. Sarah answered first. "We're not perfect. We're still figuring things out. But we're doing it together." Linda squeezed her daughter's hand. "I get to be a mom again. That's all I ever wanted." Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. The episode became one of the most watched in the show's history. But more importantly, it started a movement. Thousands of estranged families reached out to the show, inspired by Linda and Sarah's story. Some reconnected. Others found closure. All of them found hope. Dr. Phil kept that original envelope in his office. He never said why, but the staff knew. It represented everything he believed about human capacity for forgiveness, about the power of vulnerability, about the resilience of love. Years later, in an interview, someone asked Dr. Phil about his most memorable moment in television. He didn't hesitate. "The day I stopped the cameras so a mother could call her daughter. Because sometimes the show doesn't matter. The ratings don't matter. What matters is that 2 people who love each other find their way back to each other. And if I can help make that happen, then I've done my job." Linda kept that letter in a frame on her nightstand. Every morning she read it. Every morning, she remembered that it's never too late for forgiveness, never too late for love, never too late to come home. And Sarah? She kept the necklace her mother gave her on her 17th birthday. She'd never stopped wearing it. Not even during the 10 years of silence. Because deep down, beneath all the anger and hurt, she'd always known the truth. Some bonds can bend, can break, can seem beyond repair. But with courage, humility, and love, they can also heal. The story of Linda and Sarah became a symbol. A reminder that families are messy, that mistakes are human, that forgiveness is possible, and that sometimes, all it takes is one letter, one phone call, one moment of courage to change everything. 3 years after that day, something extraordinary happened that proved the ripple effect of that single moment. Linda started a support group in Phoenix for parents estranged from their adult children. It began with 7 people in her living room. Within a year, It had grown to 200 members meeting in a community center. They called it Never Too Late. Sarah became a licensed therapist specializing in family reconciliation. Her thesis was titled, The Architecture of Forgiveness: Rebuilding Broken Family Systems. She cited her mother's courage on national television as her primary inspiration. Together, they wrote a book. The Space Between: A Mother and Daughter's Journey Back to Each Other became a New York Times bestseller. But more importantly, it gave a roadmap to thousands of families trying to find their way back. Dr. Phil wrote the foreword. In it, he said, "I've had presidents on my stage. I've had celebrities, athletes, billionaires. But the bravest person I ever met was a hospital administrator from Phoenix who had the courage to sit on my couch and admit she'd made the biggest mistake of her life. And the second bravest was her daughter, who had the courage to forgive." The episode still airs in syndication. Production assistants still tell the story of the day Marcus walked on stage with that envelope. And somewhere in America, every single day, a parent watches that episode and finds the courage to reach out. A child watches and finds the courage to answer. Because that's what Dr. Phil understood that day when he stopped the cameras. Some moments are bigger than television. Some stories need to be told not for ratings, but for the person sitting alone in their living room, wondering if it's too late, wondering if they're too broken, wondering if love can really survive 10 years of silence. The answer, as Linda and Sarah proved, is yes. Always yes.